welcome everybody. I see some folks signing on, and I'm so happy everybody could join us. My name's Honor. I am one of the photo editors at Wonderful Machine, and I'm here to welcome Frances Hills, one of our member photographers based in New York, who we're thrilled to have. And Frances, I'll let you introduce yourself if you want to just say, who you are and what brings you here, and then I'll talk a little bit about what, how we got to know each other.
Absolutely. Well, as I said, I'm Frances Hills. Hi, everybody. Nice to see lots of people here. It's great. So I am a portrait photographer. I'm a people person. And I first picked up a camera in about 2002. I'm what would be considered an internet refugee. I was one of those people that was involved in the internet first time around when it was just coming big, and the bubble burst around 2000, 2001, and I was out of work for about a year, but my background had been publishing way back, and one of the first things I wanted to do is just to keep my time busy was to pick up a camera, and through lots of luck and lots of serendipity and lots of hard work too, I became a photographer. Still am, and based out of New York. Used to travel a lot. Not quite so much anymore, obviously with COVID, but yeah, so that's pretty much me, people person, and lots to tell. So yeah,
well,
there you
thank
go.
you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us here. So my name's Honor. I'm a photo editor at Wonderful Machine, and I have Frances Hills here. And we're just going to talk a little bit about how Frances and I got to know each other, work together, and, and a few things about what Frances has been up to more recently. So I got to know Frances through consulting work and creative coaching at Wonderful Machine. Frances, I think we began our
journey
with a web assessment, just
yep.
talking through your website and, ways to reorganize it. And from there, it evolved to a much more sort of ongoing relationship collaboration, teasing apart your two brands. So Frances does both corporate work as well as really beautiful high-end celebrity portraiture and fashion. And, we just spent a lot of time working on, really kind of teasing apart the two brands, refining the presentation, and then, talking about, how you wanted to reach out. And this was interesting timing too for us because franceshills.com, and everyone please, so we'll get to hopefully see some work towards the end, but franceshills.com if you want to take a look at Frances's website while we're speaking. But we'll hopefully see a bit of work at the end. So, we got to the point where you were sort of relaunching the new website right in the middle of COVID, right? Unfortunately.
Right, literally. I mean, almost literally, because we worked together. And in fact, actually, one of the things we were going to talk about was that we also did some printed materials together, which I have to show you because from a size perspective, it might look big, but it is big because this is a sumo through Modern Postcard, and I couldn't be happier. The funny thing is that this was meant to go out mid to late February, and guess what? COVID happened, so I have a big box of these waiting to send out. But this was one of the things that Honor and I worked together on. But actually, what came out first was the website, because jokingly, I referred to Honor as my sort of photographic therapist, because my Frances Hills brand, which is the kind of the celebrity fashion portraiture brand, is separated from my corporate brand. I have a corporate brand called Fig Jam Photo, and it's easier keeping the two separated. It's less fuss that way. And they've been merging over the years, and I couldn't see the wood from the trees, and I really needed someone to help me. And I started working with Honor, as you said, it's over a year ago. It's about a year ago now. And we just worked on the website, and really it was a very interesting thing because it's a difficult thing for a photographer to let go of the loved ones, as it were. There are pictures that I've had probably for 15 years in my portfolio, and I'm sort of holding on desperately, but you know, we had to let some of those go and be more current and up to date. And we went through that entire process. And then from that, we were just like, well, what else can we do now for the brand? So Wonderful Machine were wonderful, literally wonderful in helping me not only focus down on my brand for the website, but we then went into the whole case of what marketing materials, because I haven't had a portfolio. You know, my portfolios were literally covered in dust in the basement because weren't using them anymore. Didn't have any printed materials, and that's how we ended up doing this together, which was directly out of the website, which was amazing. Hoping to, as I said, hoping to send these out quite soon. So and then actually, after all of this, we also did the same thing for the Fig Jam, the corporate brand. But then we also started looking at building up a CRM. And that actually is what, you know, obviously it leads on naturally anyway, but COVID really jump-started the fact that we needed to reach out. And that's actually what I spent a lot of my lockdown doing, was working on emailing and reaching out to people I've known for 14, 15, 16 years ago, publicists, companies I'd worked with, everything. And what was surprising is people actually wanted to have a chat, because I think they were equally lost. We were all just sort of sitting around going, what's happening? So it's all been a great journey.
And now as a member too, you know, there was that transition to membership. So, you know, Francis, we've done a lot together, and I'm just so proud of all of the work. And please do, for those of you who are just joining us, this is Francis Hills, New York-based Wonderful Machine photographer. I'm Honor Brown, one of the photo editors at Wonderful Machine, and we're thrilled that you could join us, just chatting about, you know, what Francis has been up to most recently. He and I had done a lot of work together on refining his two brands, both his corporate and his, you know, advertising, editorial, commercial brand. And then Francis, I did want to touch on briefly your encounter with a scammer, which Wonderful Machine has a blog about this in general, you know, scams that can befall photographers. But if you wouldn't mind sharing that with us.
Truthfully, it was not something that literally been on my radar at all. Not really thinking that photographers got scammed, but hey, guess what? You know, there are people out there that try to do it. And this happened nearing the end of lockdown. It was kind of, I think it was July-ish, maybe even August. And things were beginning to just pick up a little bit. People were beginning to reach out. And I got a totally unsolicited email from what looked like another magazine based out of London. And I'm a fan of the magazine, and I was so excited because it said, I've been looking at your work. I saw your work off Wonderful Machine, and I've seen more. I'd be really interested in working with you. This coming from supposedly was he the editor or photo editor, Jack Moss, who, and it wasn't just a sort of a simple email. It was a spec sheet. It was how much their budget was, what they were looking to do, links, and it was all on headed paper. There was a PDF assigned to it. And I actually have like a spam and a virus program. So it went through that, and there was no sort of weird stuff going on inside it, embedded or anything, which you do sometimes think about more than perhaps a real scam. The only thing that came out, I was all excited and I didn't really see it. So I reached out immediately to Honor and also to Bill, the owner of Wonderful Machine, and said, hey, look, is this amazing? I just recently, I finally sort of upped and got my membership and was featured on the website. And I was like, this is great. And then it was Bill who noticed it. He noticed the email. It was a Gmail account, not a magazine account. And he said, just be careful, just have a look. It looks a little dodgy to me. And I'm like, oh, no, it can't possibly be. And so I did whatever, I just logically searched for another magazine, found Jack's direct contact details, and I popped him an email. And I said, listen, I just received this. Was this from you? And he got straight back to me and was like, no. And in fact, he'd had 3 or 4 other people contact him in the last 48 hours. with exactly the same thing.
Uh,
And it turns out that what the scam was to try and get you to put together a fashion shoot, that they were going to sort of send you money, but then the money was going to be maybe they overpay you and you have to send some money back. And that's thankfully the end of it. They got their lawyers on it. We managed to get a message out to everybody, just to say, listen, this is crazy. And I'm still amazed to be talking about the fact that I got it. I was just all excited thinking I'd got a job for a
no.
great fashion magazine. However I didn't.
Yeah.
But anyway.
No, I really appreciate you sharing that experience. Information is power, and I think it's important that photographers understand, that this
Yeah.
we certainly, see this here from photographers. They're approached in this way. So I think the more that that's why we felt it was important to blog about it, and thank you for talking about it.
Yeah. No, and it turns out if you start reading the blog, people are just like constantly scam, 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 and it's amazing how, again, I think it's just getting the word out. I shared it with friends, other photographer friends, and it's great that it went out on the blog, because it was new to me. I'm much more aware now, obviously, but it's good to let everyone else know that. I see someone saying that it's been a scam in the wedding industry. Yeah.
So it just keeps getting more
Yeah.
sophisticated, I think, is what's sort of shocking about it, to the extent to which it can give itself the appearance, the veneer sort of a legitimate photo shoot.
I mean, the only thing that actually stumbled them was the email.
Yeah.
That was it. If it had been, if they'd faked the email to another magazine or something even similar, crazy. But anyway, thankfully we're all safe and sound.
Yes.
And I think a couple of other wonderful machine photographers got involved with that, and thankfully they're okay too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So last time, I'm going to do my little welcome here, because I see some more folks have joined us. Thank you, everybody. This is Honore Brown from Wonderful Machine, a photo editor, with Francis Hills, one of our member photographers based in New York. And we're just chatting about, what Francis has been up to. He just shared his recent experience with, unfortunately, a scam approached for a photo shoot. And his rebranding and his marketing. I think this might be a great time to sort of transition into COVID and how you've been managing. What has this meant for you, given the impact on your career, and where, what your plans were and now are?
Yeah, I mean, we would, as we'd just been talking about, we were all ready to go. I'd worked very closely with Honor about paring down my celebrity and advertising and sort of entertainment brand, because I was very busy about 10 years ago, and I was doing a lot of magazine work, and I was shooting sort of lots of good names, and I'd been on not America's Top Model, but I'd been on Sweden, Norway, and Denmark's Top Model as the resident photographer, and I'd done lots of sort of kind of glamorous things. And like everything, we talked about this yesterday. The idea is that as a photographer, I always feel like you have to be constantly swimming like salmon upstream. You've got to be moving. If you're doing the same exact thing all the time, obviously there's exceptions to the rules, but I think for a lot of us, we have to really keep active. And what had happened was that I'd stopped doing a lot of the the more glamorous stuff, as it were, the magazine work and the celebrity portraits, and concentrated more on corporate. And corporate is wonderful. And as I said, I have a separate brand, which is Fig Jam Photo, for that. And I do a lot of corporate portraits in the city. But one of the things that I really wanted to do was be more creative again. So after about 10 years or 8 years not doing as much as that, I really felt, and that was one of the things that we'd approached you for, Wonderful Machine Forum, working with Honor, was to look at my old celebrity stuff and see how we could reinvigorate the brand of that. And that was really actually the main thrust of what we're doing. And then from that, it's amazing how the journey happens, because we did the website. We completely redid a website, thefrancishills.com. which I'm very proud of still. It's great, and I'm really happy about it. We did this huge huge marketing leaflet, which I'm actually just going to show everyone if anyone's interested. So that's the back. There's Alan Cumming, my friend. And then it's like a menu. I mean, it really is an enormous great thing. It's wonderful. And here we go on the other side. And it's a mix of my work, which has, I'm glad to say, has stood the test of time. There's some more recent work, which is some portraits I did at Sardi's for a TV show I did with Alan Cumming called Remember That Time, which was on CBS, which I helped produce. And this was all down to Honor and Wonderful Machine just putting this together, which was wonderful. And then it started us thinking about the corporate brand and how that would work. And one of the things that actually Honor was very encouraging of was personal work. And we were, as I said, we were all ready to rock and roll and send this out in February, and COVID hit. And we'd done also another one for my corporate brand. We haven't even printed that because we were just like, no, I'm going to save the money for now. And so COVID, like many, so many of us, it was just what to do. And I'm very risk averse. I'm one of those people that I wasn't going to break the rules to sort of go get a shot that was needed, I don't know. It didn't really cross my mind. And truthfully, I was like, this is it. I'm not going to work this year. I mean, it really felt like that. It just felt like I have to write this year off, but what can we do that's constructive? And the constructive thing was actually putting a CRM together. And again, this was another skill set that Wonderful Machine offered. And we really figured out the kind of work that I wanted to do, whether it's the magazines I wanted to hopefully get either back in contact with or get a fresh approach to, and working on LinkedIn and putting mailing lists together, email lists together. It's been really an amazing journey, and it actually allowed us this crazy COVID time to concentrate for basically 3 months on doing our marketing. And I was mentioning to Honor earlier that I got to talk to people that I would never in a million years expect to talk to by reaching out during COVID and going like, it's crazy, isn't it crazy? What's going on with you? Are there any movements? What are you doing? And how can I help? Is there anything I can do to help? And obviously most of the time it's like, I'm not in the office, I'm not doing anything, but you're the kind of photographer, your work is the kind of thing that I would look for if I were looking. So it wasn't necessarily about getting immediate work, but it was a lot of seed planting. And that's what we decided to do, is spend really the lockdown just planting as many seeds as we possibly can, because as you can spread a whole field full of seeds and maybe get one, but it's just that one. And we'll see. To date it hasn't quite happened yet from any of those things, but there's a positivity there, which wasn't there before. And there were clients that I would never have got, or potential clients I should say, that I actually ended up having Zoom chats with, that I would never have had a chance to had direct contact with, which has been wonderful.
Yeah. Very good. You did mention LinkedIn. For those of you who have ever worked with Wonderful Machine on marketing, you've probably heard us talk about LinkedIn. It really is, I think, a great resource. There's a lot of information there. And if you're willing to spend some time, fishing around for emails and contacts, titles, there's just a lot there. I think it can be an underused resource, really, for outreach.
It really isn't, I don't think photographers or creative people are particularly hardwired for marketing. It's not easy. I really don't like it. And especially talking about yourself, it's like, But the wonderful thing about LinkedIn is that it's not necessarily who you know, but who who they know. It's that whole 3, 4, 5, 6 degrees of separation. And you'll be very surprised. It's worth getting on there. There are some people that you just know, if they've only got 20 connections, you know that they're not active on LinkedIn. But if someone's got, over 100 or more, like 200 connections, which is not that difficult to do, actually, when you think about it, they're the sort of people that you know that you're going to get some form of dialogue, well, potential dialogue with. And even if it's just to say, hey, listen, I pinged you on here. Is it okay if I send you an email outside? And you'll be surprised at how many people are happy to do it. So, I really encourage people. LinkedIn is, as Honor said, a really underutilized resource, I think. And for photographers especially, there's a lot of good pickings out there if you just need to spend the time at it.
Yeah. All right, so now to the fun stuff. So do you want to tell us, you did eventually get to shooting again.
Yeah.
And do you want to tell us a little bit about sort of what you've been up to most recently, what kind of projects, how you've approached shooting, all that?
Yeah, certainly. So as I said, I really didn't think I was going to get back into the studio because I would say 90% of the time I'm a studio photographer. And I have a studio down on Fulton Street, down near the South Street Seaport. And it's a very, over time, over the years, my studio space has got smaller and smaller and smaller, partly because of rent, and also partly because you don't, as a portrait photographer, you don't necessarily need an awful lot of space. It's great to have a glamorous space, but when it's New York prices, sometimes a few things have to go. And my space, interestingly, pre-COVID was fantastic, but going back into shooting people, the realization of social distancing, which I was obviously very keen to do and my job, I've always said, as a photographer, we're about 90% therapist and 10% photographer. It's a lot of hand holding. It's a lot of making people feel okay and just calming them down. And then it's just that little bit of magic you can work with them once you've done that. But having the worry of germs and disease and really not understanding, because I think everyone come August, September was just beginning to sort of put their head above the parapet and just see how it was. And people were fine coming in, but I knew that I had to offer a really safe environment for them to come into. So I immediately said about, I would have I still do. I've got huge containers of disinfectant, hand disinfectant. I've got wipes for the door. And, I'd sort of clean the camera and the laptop down and things like that because I shoot tethered and people look at at things. Everyone, obviously, you come to the studio wearing a mask. You take the mask off when you come in, but only one person at a time for single portraits. And that to me was safe. I put more time between portraits. So normally I would do one every half an hour, every 45 minutes if I was doing a series of them, but I made it an hour just in case. I didn't want people necessarily interlocking, as it were, or passing each other. But then, interestingly, and this is work that Honor and I had done, which is reaching back out to magazines and publicists that I had worked with, and two of the publicists that I've worked with over 10 years ago now on different magazines. I did a lot of work with Zinc magazine and various publicists who they've gone sort of different agencies or agencies have merged and things, and remembered me, and we got back into dialogue again, and suddenly they're like, do you want to do some spec shoots? Now, spec shoots are obviously, as you know, they're not paid, but they're great marketing, and it's all about storytelling. So suddenly I went from 0 to about a spec shoot a week, minimum one a week, which has been fantastic. So I've been shooting younger actors who are on shows on Netflix and Amazon Prime, and movies as well. But it's just obviously TV has such a bigger output right now. Yeah. And they'd only, and this is interesting as well, they've only just got back to filming. It was only maybe very late July, early to mid-August that people were coming back and doing things, and therefore they've got things to promote. So, actually, as a consequence, I realize I need to actually get a bigger space, because my little small studio is great for one-on-one, but you add talent, hair, makeup, stylists, assistants, publicist, mother or father, oftentimes of said talent. I had people down. I had clothing racks down the hallway. People were changing in the bathroom at the other side of the building, just trying to keep people safe. And, constantly everyone wearing their mask. All the hair and makeup people have been amazing. They're getting tested pretty much every week. It's really, everyone's doing the right thing. I haven't had anyone be sort of silly about mask wearing or distance or space. So everyone, I think, is really, it's kind of cool, actually. I mean, we're all figuring it out together. It's still weird, especially me, me wearing a mask is probably the weirdest part, because you can see I'm using my hands a lot. And you're sitting on your hands, aren't you?
Trying.
I know. But I'm a very, I mean, actually, I'm quite a, I mean, tactile in respect to sort of being hands-on with everything. And, you have to be so much more aware of distance. And it's been a wonderful learning experience. It's totally doable with COVID. I think that's the realization. It's not like, how's this going to work? I remember a makeup artist saying to me at the beginning, like, I touch faces. How am I going to do this with COVID? But it's amazing, with the screens and, with gloves and everything else, everything's doable. It is doable.
Good to hear. Very good.
Yeah.
So this part gets a bit tricky with turning the camera around, but did you want to try and share any of the work you've done?
Sure. Well, one of the things actually that I was going to talk about was something that had started. This is more of a personal project that I just wanted to share, and then maybe I can show you just a couple of the spec shoots.
Absolutely.
But so just as a sort of an outline for people, it is on my website if you're interested in having a look at it. So my website is francishills.com, and it's a project that I started last February, March, or at least the idea last year. I really wanted to do a personal project, and I'd not done one in a while. And Honor was very encouraging when we first started talking and going through my work, which was like really encouraging of personal projects. And I remember actually a photo editor once telling me long time ago that personal projects are really important because it's through your eye. You've chosen to do something, and it is the way that you want it seen, rather than you've been assigned a task to do and therefore you're applying your eye to that task. This is a task that you've chosen, and therefore you have free access to shoot it in the way that you want to. And so what I started to do was portraits of actors standing in the wings just before they go on stage. So just during a live performance, when they're in the wings, either before the show, during the show, before an entrance, basically. And through some actors that I'd worked with before, I'd started this, and it was just beginning to get some traction, because it's like everything. People need to see, one or two, who else has done it, who else is involved. And I'd done about 4 or 5 Broadway shows. And then I just actually, this February, end of February, so just as COVID was beginning to kick in, I was over in London doing a show with Alan Cumming and Daniel Radcliffe at the Old Vic Theatre. And that was the last one that I did. And then obviously everything ground to a complete halt. So I'm going to try this and we'll see how it works.
Okay. Unforgive
me, everybody, if it's not as good, but we're going to try. So I'm going to switch the screen. So this is actually from my website. And this is Unbidden, as I said, Portraits in the Wings. And this is the very first one I did. This is the actor Tamara Tooney, who I'd photographed before and is a friend, and I'd reached out to her. This is her playing Prospero in The Tempest in Pittsburgh. And then the one that I mentioned to you, this is Alan and Dan Radcliffe, and I'll just see if this works. This is when you find out if your website actually works okay. So these were basically a series of portraits that I did, and I just sort of do it like this backstage. And this is Alan getting fitted for his prosthetic legs, which he basically sat in this chair here. And they were all withered legs, which is quite funny. And that's now this, if anyone's vaguely interested, I was in this is a piece of moving scenery. And so basically I was with Alan and Dan and the stage manager who's holding me because the scenery moved. And this is Alan actually waiting for his cue. He's waiting for the line to go on. And this was shot at some ungodly ISO. I really don't know what it was. I actually couldn't see what I was shooting. It was so dark, but luckily it came out. It's been a learning process. And here's a little bit more with Alan and Mr. Radcliffe. There we go. There's Dan, who is one of the humblest actors I've ever met. And trust me, I've photographed an awful lot of actors, but genuinely lovely, lovely guy. And there's a series of these. I'll just go back one and I'll show one more.
Do you want to say, Francis, oh, sorry, just a little bit
Yeah.
about access, because I know you and I talked about that a lot too, just how difficult it can be to get this kind of access and how you're able to
extremely difficult access. This was the Yiddish Fiddler on the Roof that closed actually just before COVID. It came to its natural end as opposed to being shut down. So what happened, I've been lucky because I have photographed a lot of actors over time. And so what I did was I reached out to some of those actors and to see if they were doing any shows. Now with Alan coming, he's been an old friend for a long time, so that was a relatively easy fix for me. But then it was through publicists and to try and get access. But of course, you've got a lot of unions you have to deal with and be very careful of. You know, you can't just go running around stage. This is Hades Town, which was just a fantastic show. And there's Hades himself checking his phone at the back on backstage. It was difficult. I'm gonna just turn it back to me just for a second. It was difficult initially, but it's like everything. Once you can show people an idea and say, listen, I've done this. If you don't ask the question, you'll never ever know. Oh, am I back? Am I here?
I think yes, you're back. Thank you.
Okay, that's all right. Okay, I was like, okay, I'm gonna drink. But you need to not be put off by things, I think. If you don't, sometimes it can seem really daunting. And I'll give you an example. After this project, during lockdown, I really, really wanted to keep going and help Broadway and help actors because all of Broadway had gone dark. And I'd come up with another idea, because all the theaters were empty. There was a realization that every theater has what is called a ghost light. And a ghost light is like a light that's in a little cage, it's like a bulb, and it's normally left on stage during the nighttime. And it's there mainly for safety. But actors are very superstitious people, and there are all these wonderful stories that theaters have ghosts. And so a light is kept on for the ghost at night so that they can be happy and not be in a dark theater. So I was going to try and photograph empty theaters, which obviously was an incredibly sad idea, but I wanted to try and do something that was very moving, and it was very much of a time. Having said, you've got to keep asking, you've got to keep asking. Well, I did ask an awful lot, but I really hit a brick wall with that, and I couldn't get access to the theaters because they were closed, and it involves a lot of people, owners, producers, and unions to get into even an empty theater, and it just wasn't happening. Yeah. So what I started to do, and this is really one of my bigger projects during lockdown, the latter part of lockdown, was to start photographing the outside of theaters, the empty theaters. And I'll turn it around again just so I can show you. And interestingly, I'm not sure what's going to happen with this project. But the very interesting thing that happened is that I shot all of this on film. And the reason this happened is not, it's not like, it's never, I've been a digital photographer for a very long time. In fact, I was sponsored by Hasselblad in my first year in 2002, 2003, and I toured the world telling people all about how wonderful digital was, high-end, medium format digital. And I'd never really shot any film. But with COVID, what happened was I actually left my digital cameras behind in the studio. And I didn't really want to go into the city to go into my studio to get them. I didn't think that was a particularly good idea. So the only thing I had was a couple of medium format film cameras. So what I decided to do was I went out and I started taking pictures of all of the streets surrounding the theaters. And this was all taken at 6, 7 p.m. on a Friday night on Broadway. And normally you'd be falling over yourself with crowds and crowds of people. And it was just really sad. And this was in August. And I'm just showing, I don't know how well this translates, but hopefully you can see it okay.
I think we get a sense of it. Yeah, it never ceases to be just a real sight, empty New York streets.
Empty New York. And it was really, really sad. I'm just trying to show you, this is something I just wanted to show, and I've shown this to Honor before, but Phantom of the Opera, popularizing masks since 1988. Absolutely brilliant. But what, and I'll show you just see if it's things like this which were very hard to wrap my own head around. Is you just saw all these barriers and things all just thrown into the lobbies of all these theaters. It was just heartbreaking. Also, this Plaza Suite had just opened, and look, it's like sort of all these things. It's terrible, and and it was very heartbreaking for me to see all of this. But I just wanted to do something, and it's as much doing it as a photographer as it is whether it's going to go anywhere or not. But all I can say is it was wonderful for me because it made me concentrate on film and not use digital. And I have to say, I was, it was good for me. It was soul food for me. So that, I mean, really in answer to the question of what did I do during lockdown, I worked on all my connections for business with CRM, Reach Out and LinkedIn. And then just before work started, which was basically September again, what I've done is, I went out and, a lot of photographers obviously shot empty streets and the empty cities or towns or villages that we lived in. This was just my little extra focus, and I plan to do more because sadly the theaters are going to be empty through certainly through January, I think, if not longer. So it's another thing, and I think I'm just going to throw it out there. I don't, initially it's like I'm going to do a book, I'm going to do this. I'm like, no, just throw it out there. So.
Yeah, not having seen these two projects for a few months now, like the relationship between the two, I think is pretty, unique, and the way you found to sort of, I don't know, continue your work in the theater or with the theater, even in spite of all of this. I think, you have a story to tell,
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Not necessarily the story I wanted to tell.
No, unfortunately.
but it's like everything. We have to make the best of these things. But so that in most respects is really what I did during COVID in terms of the practical side, which is reaching out and actually sowing all the seeds for work, which touch wood will pay off more likely next year, I think. But the beautiful thing also is getting back in contact with the people, that I'd worked with 10 years ago. And that's been really, really nice and actually fun. And that was the last thing I was going to show you. Hold on. That was the one thing I didn't get up on the screen. So while we're talking,
sure.
I'm just going to get, here we go. This is one of the actors that I did. The other shoots I've done haven't actually come out in the magazines yet. So they're due to come. But this was a wonderful young actor called Crystal Nelson, who's on a Netflix show called Grand Army, and which is this high school drama set in Brooklyn. So hold on, this is on my screen.
Right.
So
this
again,
was
colors
in your
go a little
in
funky.
your
This
studio
was in my
as you were, yeah.
studio during during COVID, with, as I said, racks of clothes down in the hallway. The picture's a little bit. Let's see if I can. I'm very bad at
No, I think
when
we've
you
got
do
a sense of
view.
it.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's okay. You can see it
Yeah,
okay.
definitely.
And this all went with a. In fact, I think I use this on my Instagram as a little. I'm talking to Honor today, so this is one of the other shots we did. And there we go. So these were nice. These are the 4 that got chosen for the magazine. And as you can see, I have a really small studio, and I just made it. I made it work. I used wider lenses that I'm used to doing because I needed to be further away from her. But you know, we all just make it work. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Francis, thank you so much. Thank you
Absolutely.
everyone who was able to join us today. This is Francis Hills, and his website is francishills.com. And we're just thrilled that you were able to
No,
speak
thank
with
you.
us. Yeah, tell us what you've been up to. So
Yeah, absolutely.
um,
Thank you. And also just a big shout out to Wonderful Machine because really very life changing. And I said this earlier in the interview, but Honor really has been my photographic therapist for the last year. It makes a huge difference when you have your work to have somebody who is separated from your work to look at it in a different way and not be quite so personally attached, and that really makes a difference. So huge thanks,
right.
and all the help, all the team, and all the help that we've gone through.
I take it as such a high compliment. And if anyone is interested in hearing more about our consulting services, you can reach out to our project manager, Brian, linked to on our website. But I'm really just so grateful that everybody was able to join us. And Francis, look forward to speaking again soon, I hope.
Of course.
It's lovely
Thank
to
you
see
for
you as
having me.
always.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for everyone who joined. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you all so much. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.